Hi grade 4s. Today we're going to be starting our patterns and equations unit in math. So this is a supplementary lesson for lesson 1. So if you notice in front of me here, I have a hundreds chart that has some numbers that are outlined in this pink color. Okay, so this is the start of a pattern as it appears on the hundreds chart. Okay, so if you're having some problem with the bright pink color, I'm going to go through the pattern right now. So it starts with the number 2, as we can see, and then the next number in the pattern is 5. Then we have 8, followed by 11, 14, 17, 20, 23, 26, and 29. Okay, so I can right away already say a couple things about this pattern, and I'm sure you guys could too. Number 1, I can see that this pattern is growing or increasing, okay? Every time the number is going up, it's a type of increasing pattern. But aside from the fact that it's going up, I can actually start to describe the pattern, and the way I describe it is called our pattern rule, okay? So when we talk about describing our pattern, that is known as our pattern rule, okay? So we know our pattern, but when we come to try to think of a rule for it, or how we would describe it, we could say a couple things, okay? So for the pattern rule, maybe I notice that we're using 2 as the start diagonal. And I know that sounds really confusing, but if you see here, my 2 is the first number, and then directly diagonal to the left of it is number 11. Okay, the next number is number 5, and then directly diagonal to the left, 14, is part of the pattern. And then directly left diagonal again is part of the pattern. Okay, so we're using 2 as a start diagonal, and then the colored squares, okay, are lying along every third diagonal. Okay, so this is one thing that I noticed right away, and this is one way that I could describe the pattern, okay? So that these numbers are all going to be diagonal from each other, okay? So this rule could potentially help me to solve the pattern going forward, okay? How I could figure out what numbers are going to come next in the pattern. Okay, so pattern rule number 1 maybe was a little confusing for some people, the diagonal word. Okay, so there's another way we can describe this pattern too. So the other way I could describe this pattern, maybe this is the one that you guys saw right away. Okay, so again, we start at 2, okay, and then I notice that there's a consistent jump that always happens. Okay, so I'm going to ask myself, what did I do to get from 2 to 5? So let's think about it. 2 to 5. Well, I notice that I added or counted on by 3 each time. Okay, because 2 plus 3 equals 5. 5 plus 3 equals 8. 8 plus 3 equals 11, and so on and so on. So this could be a pattern rule that could, again, potentially help me figure out the rest of the pattern. Because I know if I add 3 to 29, I'm going to get to 32, which again is along that diagonal, according to that first rule, but it also follows our pattern rule number 2. So using either one of these pattern rules, whether we're talking about the diagonals or starting at 2 and adding each time, it can help us to continue the pattern. Okay, so again, I know that if I add 3 to 29 here, I'm going to get 32. Adding 3 more, 32 plus 3 is going to get me to 35. Okay, adding 3 more to 35 is going to get me to 38. Adding 3 more is going to get me to 41, 44, 47, and so on. Okay, so using these pattern rules, I can actually manage to finish my chart completely. Okay, so I can follow these rules across the diagonals or by adding that 3 each time. I want you guys to practice trying to figure out what the pattern rule is for the lessons in your page 2 and 3 of your Math Makes Sense book, and how that pattern rule can help you to identify the rest of the pattern. Good luck, grade 4s.